Hello everyone and welcome back to the comments section. This is a series in which that I do a deep dive into your thoughts, into your words, and we hopefully have a really good discussion, especially as it relates to the state of gaming, which many people believe that it is in a state of decline. And I disagree. I don't think video gaming as it exists right now is in a state of decline. I think there are bad things about the industry and the state of gaming, but overall, I think that things are actually getting better. And when we look past our disappointment in whatever the hot story is at the moment, we can actually start to see through some interesting things and hopefully have some interesting discussions and maybe even make gaming and even content creation around gaming a better place and a better thing to experience. But we'll see. So hello everyone and welcome to the channel. My name is Brian if you happen to be new around here. But returning subscribers, just like Lucas says, never found a grown man to be so adorable until I heard this guy. Something about his charisma and charm make him so much more relaxing to listen to. Thanks for constant updates, and we're really hyped for the 7.0 live stream over on Blue Protocol Central. I bring that up because this is a very positive comment. You guys ultimately leave very positive comments. We end up having really great conversations, but obviously I think some of the rest of this video is going to be more on the negative, angry and frustrated side. And so I wanted to kind of, have a palate cleanser, to say that it isn't all bad. I think social media has us focusing on the bad because that's how we're wired as human beings. And bad means engagement, and engagement means growth, and growth means money. And so we have this constant state of frustration where we really don't know how to fix it. So I want to start today off with a little positivity. But let's get into your frustration. Let's get into the core of why most likely you clicked on today's video. Mighty Toast says, Ginger Prime, you say you aren't shielding in one sentence, then calling them out in a shipping and unfinished mess a hate bandwagon. I am mad because they keep getting away with this and pointing out how it is normal and does not, in fact, make it better. Now imagine for a second that you might find even more joy in gaming if we held the industry to actual standards. And let me unfortunately bring the bad news. If you agree with Mighty Toast, you are not wrong, but the industry in and of itself is so large, so massive, that you do not see boycotts, you do not see this working. So in a way, Mighty Toast has a level, and it may be like a level of frustration that builds because of their inability to affect change. So what do we do about it? How do we actually take Mighty Toast's frustration and turn it into valuable, actionable results, making the world a better place, making gaming a better place? The first thing comes down into a concept called the circle of interest versus the circle of influence. The circle of interest is the things that we like. It's probably why you clicked on this video. It's talking about video games. We're interested in these things. We're passionate about these things, but we don't have any power on any of those things. The circle of influence is actually where you can affect change in your life and in your world. So one of the two things is true. You have to either get more influence so that you can affect change, or the thing that I would advise, and this might sound cruel, stop wasting your life not affecting anything. Being mad at something, choosing to be mad at something, and it's not that you're wrong at being mad at that thing. But if you can't make that rock move, you're wasting your time. And so you need to shift into the how can you actually and actively influence gamers, the industry itself. And this comes down to a concept of a marketplace of ideas. One of the things that comes with the Redfall, which was what I was talking about in this case, which I actually enjoy. I'm having fun with the game. I still got a lot to do with the game. I wish it was better. I always, that's never going to be the case that I'm like, oh, it's perfectly fine the way it is. Absolutely not. But it's a part of the Game Pass service that I have. It costs me nothing. I've already been enjoying Game Pass. So I'm enjoying it for what it is. In a way, it is what it is, right? Like that's a phrase you'll see happen, and I'll say, multiple times probably throughout this video. But what can I actively do? Well, I can educate people. That's what I choose to do. I can educate parents. I can talk to people like directly, and what I say and what I recommend, especially about Redfall, is I wouldn't spend money on it. You try it out through Game Pass and see if it's something that resonates with you, or wait until it's severely discounted. That was ultimately my 60-second review. And I think it's a perfect sentiment to it. We vote with our dollars, we vote with our time. And when I'm talking about calling out this hate bandwagon, that's what is the case. Like, you see hate bandwagons move from game to game. There's a joy that people get out of that. There's a sense of community that people get out of that. They'll go watch all the videos about why gaming is dying, and here's all the things that they're doing to manipulate you, right? And there's nothing wrong with getting educated on how these systems are manipulating you, but there is something greatly wrong in rooting for failure and being kind of swept up in that mob. The internet's full of this. It's full of this mob mentality that I will not endorse and cannot endorse for the life of me. So how do I then influence this? How does Mighty Toast actually enable to affect industry change of what they like? I think it's essentially getting out of the constant frustration of not being able to affect change and games being released in a bad state. Talking about that in a bad state, nothing wrong with it. But how can you actually do something about it? Grow an influence, talk to the people around you, encourage people to check out games that are good, because that's what the data shows, right? The thing is, and the last thought on Mighty Toast's comment, which is really unfortunate, you see things like, I think it's called Parrot Analytics. There's all these analytics that actually then tie in social media engagement, and engagement is a word that covers both the good and the bad. So ranting about it on a YouTuber's video does nothing, but ultimately that comes back to that analytics side, which is polluting Hollywood and it's polluting our games. And so it's so hard to do what I'm about to suggest, because that's the real thing. If you really want to affect things in this modern age, in a way, you have to stop talking about them on social media and start talking about them in a one-on-one relationship, like a friend, like a friendship. So in a way, the best thing you can do is disconnect. So that's what I do on the daily. I spend a lot of time talking with adults and parents. I spend a lot of time talking about the effect of games on kids. And I spend a lot of time hopefully helping people better manage both social media and gaming. And that's how I actually influence the world to be better. Not necessarily going around just screaming about it online, because that only just gets attention. But it's a limited amount of attention, and it's not the attention that I like. Anyway, thanks Mighty Toast for the comment. Let's go to 3 Mile Island. He says, damage control takes many forms. This video is an example of the most insidious type of damage control. An argument presented insincerely as a neutral perspective that derives from those who might seek to get genuine and reasonable grievances as being malicious or malicious. If you're an Xbox and you love games, why should you be gaslighted for complaining that the CEO of Microsoft Gaming, Phil Spencer, is saying? I see it out there, the commentary that you just build great games, everything will turn around. It is just not true. If we go off and build great games, all of a sudden you're going to see the console share shift in some dramatic way. This quote shows Phil Spencer does not place marketing great games in paramount with the gaming company, and that is repulsive or respective, and the possibility of what great games are the most important thing in gaming. Business does not matter, profits matter, market share matters, but the quality of the game release matters more than all of the rest combined. Without that, you have no soul, and you show ultimate disrespect for the passion held by your audience and your customers. For saying that alone, that he should resign immediately, for anyone else who thinks that this is acceptable languages from a gaming CEO, has truly lost their way. Thanks. Well, I think, it's important to actually quote people in context of what they're saying. You can go take any kind of quote from any source and try to twist it, right? And that's, I think, what 3 Mile Island here is doing. In the case of, will people just automatically shift? I think a lot of people misunderstand what Phil's saying here. Whether he should have said it or not, that could be something that we could talk about and debate about for years to come. But no, if Microsoft just makes 11 out of 10 games, are they going to just people sell their PlayStation 5s? Well, no, that would be ridiculous. Most console gamers, I think, generally speaking, have more than one. And maybe I'm wrong in statistics. I'm not quoting anything there, but I know that I have all the consoles, right? And I have to say, the thing that I like more than any of it is cloud gaming, because it gives me more flexibility than the rest combined. But the internet isn't ready. Well, maybe in your house, but here we have the great internet, and cloud gaming is substantially a better way to experience it, because I can game on local on my gaming PC, and then I can have that same or even a better experience like in my chair downstairs, hanging out with the kids and whatnot. So when it comes down to what we're seeing, is we're also seeing a tectonic shift in what is gaming. PlayStation is all about selling a console. Xbox is about selling a service. I do agree. You want to make great games. You want to make the best games that you can possibly make. And passion is a key aspect to that. Nobody can go out and just order you to go make a game that you don't want to make, and it's going to come out at, a 10 out of 10. That's just not the case. But there's also the aspect of when it comes to these kind of games and when it comes to these kind of issues, saying that Phil Spencer needs to resign because a game that that was acquired by Microsoft, that was already in development and had to go through COVID, and that's the key aspect here. That's where, as a developer, when I see all these hate trains that happen from people who have absolutely no clue about what it takes to actually bring a game to market, it does frustrate me, and I'm not going to lie or hide that fact that it is frustrating. Because it's just the same. Like if I was going to come into your industry, into your expertise, and tell you that you're doing it wrong without having any kind of knowledge, that is what it is. And playing a game doesn't make you knowledgeable of how the industry is run behind the scenes, nor is just commenting on it. Like, I don't know what went wrong at Arcane. I'm not going to present oh, I know exactly what went wrong there. But Arcane has a history of hitting good games. This also is when you see when those companies miss and how dangerous gaming is, what the risk is. You're really only as good as your last good game. There are going to be people that fall off that train over time. If you take Blizzard as a good example, but they also had massive numbers. So the losses feel bigger, but I think in terms of kind of that ratio and that bleed that happens from time to time, that's the case. But what turns it around is great games. Phil needs to make great games. Starfield needs to be a great game. They need to make sure that they're disciplined. The thing that Sony has, I think, in my personal opinion, over Microsoft in this case, is they let their teams work until they feel the game is ready. And that is something to be admired and to be respected and to be praised. Going back to Mighty Toast, the thing that we should do, the thing that we should champion, is letting these teams finish these games. Especially in terms of the single player, and the MMOs are a whole different story because they evolve with time. You're going to get people who hate MMOs and will play them regardless, and then you're always, I can't fix that. There's no cure for that. And maybe AI will help make MMOs launch in a much better state, because then you could actually simulate millions and millions of people hitting the servers and actively doing what players would really do. Maybe that would be something to kind of see, but in terms of it, no, I'm not doing damage control. I'm just telling it how it is. Some people just don't like that message, and that's perfectly fine. I'm not trying to be the content creator for everybody. I'm just trying to tell y'all how it is. And a lot of people don't like how it is. People like to think how they think it is, right? It's, again, a lot of gaming and a lot of gaming conversations, especially in the age of social media, have evolved into a kind of a relationship debate. My girlfriend's hotter than your girlfriend. Oh, things like that. Or, like, this is, in a way, some people kind of turn this into a level of cultish and religionist. And it's perfectly fine to call that stuff out. And it's perfectly fine to disagree. If you feel gaslighted by what I'm saying, I say go look in the mirror and kind of reflect on your life, in that regards. To call for Phil Spencer's head based off of that interview, I think is absolutely absurd, especially if you look at it like a track record and what he's doing and what he's building. And I think that's where one of the things I would love to see within the YouTube space is to be able to mark various commenters as knowing, like, oh, this person's massively into PlayStation. 3 Mile Island, probably not. Maybe they're a massive Xbox fan and they're really disappointed and they want it. The thing that cures the 3 Mile Island here is if Starfield is amazing, unless they're a PS fanboy. And I can't tell. Like, you can never really tell somebody's sincerity through a text, so that's going to be what it is. But anyway, thanks 3 Mile Island for the comment. Appreciate you helping support the channel by engaging in the video. So thank you very much. Now, I got two comments kind of that I'm going to join together in this case. Crooked Vulture says, don't pre-order ever, but do pay or prepay via subscription. Can't you see the mixed message here? And I kind of follow up, like, what are you talking about? And they say, why is day one on Game Pass literally one of the marketing slogans? Why do people say day one releases when you ask what they like most about Game Pass? Fact, if you're sub to Game Pass, you're paying in advance for day one releases, period. If the statement is fundamentally flawed, why don't you explain how? Vulture here is trying to make an argument that being a part of Game Pass is the exact same thing as pre-ordering a game. And no, I do not support pre-ordering games. If you get burned by a game, by pre-ordering a game, and you keep doing it, and you keep getting burned, like at some point, like I'm going to tell you the oven's hot. Stop putting your hand on it. And if you keep putting your hand on it, at some point, I'm going to have to just wish you the very best in life. Good luck to you out there. You know, if you can't, you know, like you fool me once, shame on, you know, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me kind of mindset. A subscription is a service. You're paying for a service. Like if you would say, hey, I'm subscribed to the internet. I'm prepaying for future internet. I don't care what they do with the money. That's none of my concern. That's none of my power. That's once I hand money to a company, they do whatever, then what it is, right? That's the deal. It's a relationship. I give you money. You let me play games right now. If somebody is, in this case, subscribing to, you know, I almost said GeForce Now, which is a great service, not sponsored. Love it. And in fact, they just started an Xbox games to it. Totally awesome service. If you guys haven't had the chance to check it out, it is great. Anyhow, beyond that, that random plug that I don't get paid anything for because it's that good of a service. Beyond that, though, it's like if you subscribe to Game Pass and say, oh yeah, I'm going to subscribe and pay now for Redfall. I'm sorry, like I don't support that at all. But to say that like, oh, I'm enjoying Game Pass, but I'm contradicting myself by saying not to pre-order is absolute insanity. And some of y'all like, I love you, Vulture. I love you, Crooked Vulture, but that is a very weak argument. And hopefully, I don't know if you're listening to this video, but if you do, hopefully that helps answer my ability to explain how your logic is fundamentally flawed and that you're making a false contradiction. A false like comparative. I don't even know the term now. A false thing. Anyway, a falsity. We'll go with that. Thanks so much for the comments and engaging with the videos. I really do appreciate it. All right, DRG says Redfall is trash, even at 60 frames a second on PC. I don't care if Starfield is 60 frames or not. I just want a great experience with no groundbreaking bugs. Oh gosh. And this is Bethesda, guys. And also to scope the game, wouldn't let it run at 60 frames anyway, but we'll see. 30 frames is fine for certain games, while 60 frames is fine for fighting, for platforming, and racing. I disagree. I think especially in the age of shooters, if you are not hitting 60 frames a second, people are going to feel that. There's enough options out there you can play right now at 60 to 120 that you're going to feel the difference. Combat is fundamentally better at 60 frames. If they can't hit 60, why not? And then the narrative shifts to the weakness of the console. But then you have like, you know, cloud can help with that. There's so much that can help with that. And hopefully they are able to deliver that experience. Hopefully this is a wake-up call with the Redfall launch that makes Starfield get what they need and get it done. But I'm going to tell you right now, I do not envy the team at that studio who is working on this game. This is probably a tough, all pressure, let's get it done. Let's get the tasks move across the board. Let's get the performance check and go. Well, wait and see. Like there's no word, no leaks, no rumors right now to kind of really get into, but yeah, I think they have to hit 60. I think 60 on console has to be hit. Maybe not. You know, again, I guess the gameplay and the experience might be so great and so groundbreaking, but we're talking about a space shooter game with, you know, Skyrim and all these different parts. I'm rooting for it. I am always going to root for the devs and the teams and more and more and more. So that's going to be what it is. Now, Doug, sorry if I'm Doug Wynn, butchering the name in this case, says, I feel like there's so much pressure on Starfield to impress. What will force them to shoot for the stars, and that might just be a step too far? Same thing happened with Cyberpunk, No Man's Sky, etc. Eventually they did deliver, but it was months after the release and probably millions more in development money. Absolutely. Now, Philip says, who cares? For God's sake, let's go to the middle ground. Skyrim took months after release to be in good shape. This is typical for games. Let's say Starfield is released in a good way, and then there are still 12 issues and things like that, and less than marketing, but they are fixed. If Starfield has the ability to offer me on the off play for a decade, for heck's sakes, that's the hell is a game. And we're not talking about like minor bugs. Minor bugs are minor. That's the thing that will exist and continues to exist. We're talking if it becomes just fundamentally unplayable. Like where the biggest problem that I found with Redfield was when it would wipe out people's progress. That's unexcusable. That's unexcusable. Progress wiping bugs should never be in production. Oh, like this NPC is acting weird or whatnot. That's usually kind of funny. I haven't run into any game-breaking bugs with Redfield, but I do feel like there is this mindset that was working against it. So where I would say Redfield is a $20 to maybe $40 game, it's hard with Game Pass because it's like I don't think I would pay $40 for it, but I'd easily pay $20 for it and have it as a part of my library. But that's how I judge games, right? For Starfield, if they're going to sell it at $70, I think there's some mindset here. Like the $70 mindset, especially in this economy, like means like, what else am I giving up? And it needs to be something that doesn't just get you the time in game, but the experience, so that you're not sitting here going like, well, guess I'm going to restart it, because only your passion for a game is only so far, especially for a new IP. I think if Redfield was a series, it would have way more leeway. It would have had way more balance in terms of how people perceive it. But as a new IP, people are just hungry to be a part of both the it's so good crowd and the I hate it crowd, right? There it becomes a binary as opposed to kind of a spectrum in terms of how we talk about these games. Now, Virus says, Microsoft pulling out of the UK is beyond stupid. As someone who works in the tech manufacturing, they make an untold amount of money, not only though through their actions and their partners. If they did that, they would lose massive amounts of market share and damage relationships with public sector bodies and other corporations, as it would mess up their production pipeline. When the company like Microsoft gets the size that it is, it no longer gets to take random action to prove a point. And they are embedded so deep into the running the infrastructure of the nation that they are in weekly calls with critical areas of the administration and the government. Not only have they tried to do it, but countries wouldn't be scared not to allow the merger, but it would be worried about doing business with Microsoft. The largest customer these companies have is the government itself. But hey, if Microsoft irrevocably destroys its presence in the top 10 economy, then they're welcome to try. And that's pretty much what the CEO has said. So whether it's beyond stupid, like they are talking about basically making a carve out for the UK and punishing the UK. The UK will actually lose in this fight against Microsoft. They have that much leverage in terms of power, taxation, employees and things of that nature. Will they pull the trigger? I have no idea. I actually agree. I think it would be very costly and it would damage relationships, etc. But what is their bigger goal here? And if their bigger goal is that we're just going to go ahead and accept the merger and then we're going to run Activision Blizzard out of the UK, or just not publish games by Activision Blizzard in the UK, then I think that they're going to hold that point. But right now you're seeing the government really kind of like have a lot of conversations, a lot of pressure. The prime minister and whatever is talking to them now after Microsoft met with them. So I think Microsoft's pretty daggum serious about this. And so when no one's trying to spend $70 billion and not put up a fight. And I think there's going to be a fight, and we'll see with the EU approving it. With that, like it seems like other people are approving it. We'll have to wait and see. I do know I think they have a hard reset in July to be able to close on the deal. So stay tuned. We will let you know how that folds or unfolds in this case. Now, the final comment, Brooklyn 560 says, man just casually sips in that he almost cheated on his wife a few times. Now, I never said that I almost cheated on my wife. I said that I am very well and capable of doing so, as is every person out there capable of doing things. It's called the near occasion of sin. I do not assume that I am some, perfect individual. I think when people start to say, hey, I would never do something, are the people who end up finding that they do that thing, right? Because you don't put up a plan of defense, right? So a part of that, I run and protect my wife because I sit here and don't assume that I'm incapable of doing something what I would consider horrendous. My grandfather, cheated on my grandmother. He left a wake of destruction for my mom and her family. And I've seen that cost trickle out over generations. I know what that means. I know what that does to people. I know how that hurts people. I know how that drives people to drugs and sex and just a whole mess of destruction. And me and my kids and my wife are more important than any of that. And it starts with understanding that I am flawed, that I need help, that I am not perfect, that I am capable of doing the things that I don't want to do or think that I, would ever do. And so I start with that in mind from a form of defense so that I don't ever find myself walking down that, that road of good intentions to all of a sudden wind up in someone's bed. So no, I never almost cheated on my wife. I have no intention to do so, but I have a defensive plan so that I do not do these things. And that's important. And I think a lot of people would do well with that advice. I don't think I would ever, X, Y, and Z. It's like, well, come up with a plan so that you have, like red flag check marks so that all of a sudden you're like, well, I never thought I would, do this, but, like, okay, and then it's like all of a sudden you look back over years and you're like, I don't even recognize myself anymore, right? So put in a plan, put in a way, a form to strengthen yourself, strengthen your relationships, and don't sit here and assume that you aren't somebody who in the right or the wrong circumstances would do something that not necessarily you would want to do right now in your right mind, but like maybe you're impaired, maybe you've been drinking, maybe, X, Y, and Z. So there's just rules that I live by in this case that I can protect me and my family. So I just want to make that clear, but thank you, Brooklyn. Thank you guys so much all for your comments and making this hopefully a fun comment section video to listen to and to enjoy. I'm going to wrap it up here and wish you guys all the absolute very best. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you here with more videos this coming week. Keep signing off in the comments. We'll keep having these discussions, and until then, take care.